We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Just 1 year after the disastrous withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan, and President Joe Biden is keen to wipe the legacy slate clean. But with the Taliban going from strength to strength, how long can America ignore the power vacuum it created in the graveyard of empires? Well, we're joined today by former Deputy Undersecretary of Defense Controller Dave Patterson, who covered the Afghanistan withdrawal in detail for LibertyNation.com. Welcome back to the show, Dave.
Thank you very much, Mark. Happy to be with you.
So, Dave, how bad is this as a legacy marker for President Biden?
Well, I think it's as bad a legacy marker as you can get. I mean, it has several elements that recommend it as one of the top bad legacies for a president. First of all, the incident itself was just horrendous. It was just mismanaged and demonstrated a capability of Biden's presidency that was simply incapable of handling a crisis. He never paid any attention to any of the advice going into it, and the litany of things that he did wrong to create this disaster, are manifest and have been reported on numerously. But it all started when he decided that he would withdraw U.S. forces precipitously and then work to get Americans and friends of Americans out. That was the most horrendous decision. Normally, what you would want to do is you would want to get the non-combatants safely out and leave the military in place to ensure their safety. He did it exactly the opposite way, and the consequences flowed from that.
It's almost even back chair, sitting room generals like myself can see that putting the cart before the horse, as it were, was doomed to failure from the start. How could he justify that to the commanders on the ground?
Well, I don't think that there was any attempt to justify it. I think that McKenzie said it as well as you can say anything that was fairly stupid. He says, the president made the decision and we just carried out that decision. Well, come on, so where was your pushback? You're a military guy, a four-star general. What did you have to say about that? And it was so obvious that this was a wrong move, and everybody who looked at it from beginning to end said, this is not the way you do things. And worse yet, you had complete control over the time frame where the withdrawal could have been done in a more orderly fashion. And rather than take the time necessary, which you could have done, you decided to do it precipitously, put a date on the sand, and a date that ended up not being you were not being able to get your forces out. So this was ridiculous from beginning to end. And the second part of the bad legacy is that it has become a bad legacy. And that is that you have created the very environment of global terrorism, safe haven for terrorists that you had hoped to eliminate. But by virtue of...
That's what I want to talk about, Dave. How much more powerful is the position of the Taliban now compared to, let's say, 2 years ago, for example? Because it seems to me that as a propaganda win, this is that you couldn't hope for a better one.
You're exactly right. The Taliban is, for all intents and purposes, across Afghanistan, in total control. And whereas 2 years ago, obviously they weren't, and they were being held at bay. The thing that you never want to do in any sort of a modestly successful withdrawal is to leave when your enemy has the best operational environment in which to carry out their mischief. And so what is the best operational environment? Oh, the summertime.
Yeah, fighting season. Yeah.
Exactly. and it has been that way for, golly, 1,000 years. But the Biden administration didn't figure that out. Even though every administration previously had always basically scheduled their operations around the fighting season.
What are we thinking that, I mean, obviously there's a lot of reports about how things are on the ground in Afghanistan for regular people, but how bad is it now that the Taliban have complete control?
Well, I think that those left behind, despite the fact that no one will be left behind, are in serious jeopardy. Reports are that about 80% of all the Afghans who had been modestly friendly toward the coalition forces are in deep trouble and are constantly harassed and in many cases summarily killed. And it's not an isolated one here, one there. It's rather ubiquitous throughout the entire country.
Right now, what is the U.S. position on the region at the moment? So are there any projects going ahead, funding going in, diplomatic interventions, diplomatic relations? What's happening?
The diplomatic relations are by surrogate, mostly, and there are funds.
It's Russia, isn't it, as the surrogate?
Of course, why not? They're behind it 100% in Iran, but there are others as well, and we are supporting the non-government organizations as best we can. But there are approximately 74,000 Afghans who would qualify for the special visa status to exit Afghanistan. And the State Department at last report has 34 administrators to handle 74,000. So you can see that the State Department is right on top of this and has established a crackerjack operation.
Mind you, they do have 87,000 new IRS agents en route. So at least when they do arrive, these helpers of the U.S. Army, they'll be fully taxed and audited. So that's no problem. Now, has Joe Biden, with his withdrawal, that I think everybody, it would take a blind eye to so to speak, to say that it was a success on any level. But have his actions, have they created a pariah state almost?
I think that the actions have created probably 4 pariah states. People have watched what took place. Russia has no time for Biden. I mean, they see him as kind of just a bumbling fool, and Afghanistan is ample evidence. The Chinese see Afghanistan as the perfect example of what they can anticipate, which is mismanagement and fumbling at the diplomatic level. And also you have Iran, who looks at this situation and says, we have nothing to fear. And not only that, but they have now been bolstered by what appears to be somewhere north of 10,000 former security forces in Afghanistan who have brought all their kit with them and have moved into Iran, which of course will take great advantage and exploit the intelligence value of the weaponry that they brought with them. So, golly, it's really a swell situation for the Biden administration, but it is absolutely emblematic of everything they've done. I mean, they have one good week where they lie about inflation and kill Zawahiri, but the fact that they killed Zawahiri and the circumstances was simply more evidence that the Afghans are in fact providing safe haven for the most terrible of terrorists. He felt so emboldened. He just he's lounging out on the balcony because what does he have to fear? Well, it turned out bad, but for him, but nonetheless.
Yeah, it speaks to a much larger picture. Dave Patterson, thank you ever so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mark. Happy to be here always.
After this short break, we're coming back with Scott Cosenza to examine New York State's pushback against the Supreme Court ruling that reiterated your right to keep and bear arms. Don't go anywhere. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
For real, really real. Liberty Nation.
And Jeff Charles, contributor for
I think
LibertyNation.com.
we're starting to make an impact. Liberty style, fighting for freedom.
Daily tracking polls sponsored by Liberty Nation for Thursday.
Mentioned by Dan Bongino, Rasmussen, Jordan Peterson, and
I
others.
can do it again if you want me to.
Cited in Mark Levin's American Marxism.
I think we're starting to make a really big impact. Get noticed. We're doing it. Rock on. I'm gone.